sort of touched on with the conversation about 3D printing and things like that, but I'm getting the impression that it's not necessarily the issues with building that are actually is the reason why we're not building houses. It's more about house builders not necessarily being prepared to start off when they've got the planning in place and they've got the land. So is the off-site building model, is that something that would help in this situation, or would this not have much of an impact? The idea of kind of modular construction or building off-site and delivering, is that?
Yep. It's certainly going to get more traction, and we're working with Barrett's and Wimpy's and the like, and Crest and these people, and they've all this 2020 vision. Where a percentage of new homes in 2020 will be modular off-site construction. Now, whether it's the whole house or part of the house or pods and all that razzmatazz, we're working through it at the minute, and we're doing some tests with Redrow in this next week or so. On off-site, made in the factory, delivered to site type.
But sorry, Derek, this isn't about building more houses. This is actually plugging the skill shortage we were talking about earlier.
So we
actually maybe making the house cheaper for the house builder to build.
Well, probably not actually cheaper. Actually, it'll be the opposite. At the minute, I suppose volume and factory costs dictate that. But it is. They believe they can build the 190 plus units with the current skills. This is about going beyond that. Some of it'll be for the small starter home size house that you can fit in a lorry and crane off type thing, not the bigger house. So it'll plug some of the volume, but also it's really about how do you plug growth. If you did expand to 200,000 houses, we can fill some of that with possible extra labour, but there's still going to be a shortfall to obtaining that, so they're going to off-site. Obviously you need the labour in a factory, but it's probably a wee bit easier to recruit in a factory environment than train the skills and manage the quality.
Maybe I'm too cynical. I'm not sure it will plug a gap. I think it will just replace what we're doing.
The reality is not cost effective at the moment. That's the challenge with all these off-site. You have a very upfront cost, you know.
I think you're both, from my perspective, you're both right. I think it is about skills, and it's about the perception it's easier to recruit people to go and work in a factory than it is to go and recruit people to work on a site, particularly during the winter months, which if you live in Manchester runs from August to June. So I think that that's part of the issue. I think there's a quality issue.
Yep.
There's a repeatability issue, and that we all know from volume manufacturing that can bring down cost. But I think there's a whole number of things wrapped up in this. I think the interesting thing for me, and I've been flogging building materials for far too long, it's been looked at a number of times, and a number of builders have tried it, whether it's steel frame, whether it's timber frame, whether it's pre-insulated panels made in a factory and then shipped to site. Nobody quite seems to have cracked it. The people that have cracked it are the likes of Travelodge, Premier Inn, building the timber cassettes and the pods, or Unite, building the student accommodation, building them in a factory and then shipping them to site and slotting them into a frame. That seems to have worked. Nobody's quite cracked it with housing yet, because we don't all want to live in the pod. We all want something a bit different.
That's why it's only got a limited
social housing, I think.
Could have vast market, exactly. That's where the market's waiting for, isn't it?
So
it should be low cost, should be high volume, it should satisfy demand that's not being satisfied.
The future housing footprint is projected to actually continue to get smaller and smaller.
Of course, yeah.
The more demand for single-owned houses rather than families.
I drive around new housing developments to the new planning rules, and you know what? I couldn't think of a worse place to live. You can't park your car outside your house. From my perspective, and I know I'm the wrong side of 50 now, so I have certain prejudices, but I wouldn't want to live on one of these newly designed estates. People of my age group they aspire to a detached house where they can walk all the way around it and they can park the car on the drive outside. That's not what you get from a new housing development.
Yeah.
Nope.
I must admit, as someone who has recently got onto the housing ladder, I completely agree with you. the kind of it's housing estate kind of boxes that they don't
Social
appeal to me
engineering.
anyway.
But John, to get the luxury of that space, you have to live in Manchester.
Or
Certainly not in
Yorkshire.
London.
But just going back to the point, sorry, Steve, just going back to the point Jenny made, I think in slight defence of house builders, which is a relatively uncomfortable place for me to be, but in slight defence of house builders, the challenge is first-time buyers. Even with Help to Buy and the like, in certain parts of the country, you can't get first-time buyers onto the housing ladder. It goes back to the point Peter made. The Germans look at us, Germans look at the UK market, and they don't understand it. Why do you want to buy a house?
Why buy it?
Let, borrow that, then lease the house, you can then move around and have all the worries and all the rest of it.
It's culture.
But we have this cultural thing where we're expected to get on the property ladder, we're expected to continue to move up the property ladder, and then at the end of our working career, we downsize and we bank some cash. We are fairly unique in that we view houses as an appreciating asset and part of our pension plan.
And it comes to who's buying houses at the moment. And we have a Walling division, and we do this work. But what's consistent, what comes from the developers, is people like bricks and blocks, and they will. That's the people who are buying the houses. That's what they will make.
But probably against it, John particularly. I think off-site will grow in the UK. I think somebody will get it right. It has to, because of the lack of skills and the speed of delivery and many things really. On-site issues, etc. So I think it's a real danger to manufacturers, because in effect you're going to get a house builder that will become a manufacturer.
And indeed merchants.
Well, they're ready.
So I think for the whole supply chain issue, I think
more of a risk to merchants.
But I think they will become a manufacturer, John. If they're running factories or whatever, they'll get manufacturing skills and they'll start manufacturing.
And if they want to invest 100 million in building a glass fibre plant, then
maybe. So there may be some products that won't be effective, but fact of life is there'll be a lot of products that will.
And they will look at global sourcing and all that.
And they'll comply with sourcing, and they'll bring stuff from the.
It's a big risk for the merchant market, because I think with John, if they're building and they need glass wool, they'll go to the manufacturer and buy it, and that's where.
But anyway,
that's got to continue.
I might be wrong, but on record, it's a threat to manufacturers, because they will become a manufacturer first and foremost. They won't become a merchant; they become a manufacturer first and foremost. And I think they can import things. They can do what some manufacturers are doing already, and global products. So I would be careful on that front. Bowers are putting a lot of money into it at the moment in terms of trying to get it right, and there was somebody who will crack it.
Yeah, no, they're
They haven't done
definitely.
it yet,
They're
but somebody will
trying,
crack it.
But it is out there, as you say, in the commercial sector and the pods and stuff. So the technology is there.
Yeah, and it may not be the existing house builders.
Well,
You may get some smart person kicking around somewhere from another industry coming, I can build these houses. And he'll have a big factory put down and maybe get some government support for a factory somewhere, and off you go.
So from an industry point of view, we need to make sure that big is not necessarily beautiful, that we as an industry are helping, as we said at the beginning, self-build, small builders, because that's still going to continue, that's going to exist.
The market will go that way, Mark,
it will.
But I think at some point, if I had to go to lad books and put some money on it, somebody will get it right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But it may be not the existing house builders, because they're making too much money doing what they do traditionally.
Yep, somebody with a new model.
They might put the toe in the water and have a look at it, like Bowers are doing, like Taylor Wimpey's and like Space4 done with Persimmon for a long time now.
Yep.
Everybody expected Space4 to get closed when Persimmon bought it. They haven't.
Yeah.
Kept it. So strategically, I think, from a manufacturing viewpoint, it could be dangerous.
But that can all be combined, can it? That suburban hell that you described, which I agree with, but actually for a lot of people, that's their idea of heaven, to be able to rent something. And I think that's the key word, the rental market. So off-site production of low-cost, high-volume social housing rented cures a whole load of problems in one go, doesn't it?
Exactly.
But it's not happening.
So why
But it
is
will
it
pay
not
for
happening? Why is it not happening?
Because the commercial pressures for the house builders are, we'll buy all the land and we'll build houses on it that we can sell at a huge margin.
That's today's
So
model.
is the
Exactly.
is the
today's
answer to
model.
put a limit on planning so
Well,
that
it
they
tried
can?
that. PP3 and all that's tried to limit that,
Doesn't-
didn't it? And
doesn't
build
work.
some social housing. So where do we build the social housing on all of these developments
Sure.
in the least popular spot, and nobody wants to buy around it? It's a cultural, social thing.
that's
It's
fair.
unfortunate, but it's true.
Isn't that what Legal and General are planning to do?
Yeah, exactly that.
But somebody with manufacturing experience could set one of these factories up and really make it work. But I don't think house builders will do it. I agree with you, John. I don't think house builders have got the technical know-how to do it. and the need to change, really. But
They haven't got the desire to do
They ain't
it.
got the desire to do it either.
I think the legal and
But
general.
I think it will go.
The legal and general plan is very interesting. You know, they set up their own factory, they build their own houses, they put them on land they already own, and then they rent them out. That's a very interesting business model. And
Absolutely.
we all watch that with interest to see exactly how that pans out.
There'll be a legal and general Mark II somewhere.
They will.